All right, let's talk about something we've all done. You're writing an email, you're in the zone, and then you stop. You hesitate, wondering, is it my brother and I or my brother and me? Well, you're definitely not alone. We're about to clear up some of these really common grammar tripwires that even the pros stumble over, so your message always lands with clarity and, confidence.
So let's just dive right in with a classic. Go ahead, read that sentence to yourself. My brother and me went on a camping trip. It sounds pretty normal, doesn't it? I mean, we hear people say it like that all the time. But there's a tiny little grammatical flag there, and I promise once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Or how about this one? See that little hesitation? That question mark at the end? That feeling of uncertainty is exactly what we're here to get rid of today. Choosing the right pronoun shouldn't feel like you're just taking a guess and hoping for the best.
And one last one for our little warm-up. This is a great one. Baddest. It's a word we hear a lot, and it absolutely gets the feeling across, right? But is it the right word to make your point as sharp and powerful as it can be? This is another one of those small tweaks that makes a huge difference.
So, if any of these sound familiar to you, you are in exactly the right place. And we're not just going to memorize a bunch of boring rules. We're going to get to the why behind them, the actual logic, so that making the right choice just becomes second nature.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll figure out why these things sound a little off. Then we're going to give our pronouns, job titles. Trust me, this makes it so much easier. We'll play a little comparison game, solve a quick grammar puzzle, and then we'll wrap it all up by talking about how this all leads to speaking and writing with a whole lot more confidence.
All right, section 1. It sounds wrong, but why? Let's get into these common tripwires and see the simple logic that makes fixing them a piece of cake.
Okay, this is probably the single best way to understand pronouns. Just think of them as having job titles. They are not interchangeable. Each one has a very specific role to play in a sentence, and they basically work in 3 main departments: nominative, objective, and possessive.
This chart right here, this is your new best friend, your ultimate cheat sheet. So the nominative pronouns, those are the stars of the sentence. They're in the spotlight. They're the ones doing the action. Then you have the objective pronouns. Think of them as the supporters. They receive the action. And the possessive ones are just the owners. Pretty straightforward. Let's see how they work.
Let's really focus on the stars of the show here, the nominative case. These are the pronouns that are actually doing something. If a pronoun is the subject of the sentence, it absolutely has to come from this list. And boom! Here's our very first fix. Remember that camping trip? The real question is, who went camping? Well, 2 subjects did the action, which means we need 2 stars in that role. The pronoun me is a supporter. That's its job title, so it just doesn't fit. The subject, the star, has to be I. My brother and I went camping. Makes sense, right?
Okay, let's move on to the supporters, the objective case. These pronouns don't do the action, they're on the receiving end of it. Or they show up after little connecting words, prepositions, like for, to, or between.
The key word to look for here is between. That's a preposition. And prepositions need an object to support them. They need a supporter. The pronoun he is a star, and that's just the wrong job for this sentence. We need the objective supporter, which is him. The argument between Tomas and him.
All right, time to switch gears. We're moving on from pronouns and talking about comparisons. And I want you to think of this as a really simple game that has 3 levels of intensity for our descriptive words, which are also called modifiers. It's a super simple 3-level game. Level 1, positive. You're just describing one thing. A fast runner. Easy. Level 2, comparative. You're comparing exactly 2 things. Who is faster? And at level 3, the superlative, you're comparing a whole group, 3 or more, to find the one and only fastest runner of them all.
But, of course, grammar loves to have its little rule breakers, right? These common words don't just add an ER or ES at the end. We don't say gooder, we say better. We don't say badder, we say worse. It's a good idea to just get these irregular ones locked in your memory.
Which brings us right back to our fire example. She's comparing this one fire to all the other fires she has ever seen. That's definitely more than 2, so we need the top level, the superlative. And since bad is one of our rule breakers, its superlative is worst. Oh, and just a quick pro tip, avoid double comparisons. It's never more worse, it's just worse.
Okay, so you have the tools now, you know about pronoun job titles, you get the comparison game, so let's put it all to the test and solve a little grammar puzzle taken straight from our source material. All right, take a good look at this one. There are 2 pronoun errors hiding in plain sight here.
Based on everything we've just talked about with job titles, how would you go about fixing this passage? Take a second and think about it.
Let's break it down piece by piece. For the first part, just ask the question, who formed the circle? Her and her colleagues did. That means they are the subject. They are the stars of the action. So we have to use the star pronoun, which is she. She and our colleagues.
Now for the second part, which can be a little tricky. See that phrase, it was? I want you to think of the verb was as a big equal sign. It equals them. Now, it is the subject of that clause, so it's a star. That means the pronoun on the other side of that equal sign also has to be a star. But them is a supporter. That's not going to work. We have to swap it for the nominative star, which is they. It was they who became known.
So there we have it. We've untangled pronouns, we've figured out comparisons. But so what? Why does any of this actually matter in the real world? Well, it turns out that mastering these little details isn't just about being correct. It's about the power and professionalism of your entire message.
Here's the bottom line, the big takeaway. When your grammar is on point, your message becomes crystal clear. You build credibility because it shows your audience that you care about the details. And maybe most important of all, you gain confidence. You can focus on your amazing ideas, not on second-guessing your words.
And now the fun part begins. I guarantee as you go about your day, listening to things, reading things, you are going to start noticing this stuff everywhere. So my final question for you is this. Now that you have the toolkit, which one of these errors do you think you'll spot first out there in the wild?